Good morning and welcome to lesson 2 on paper 2. Today we are going to be discussing making inferences. Can you make sure that you've completed the Q1 assess test from yesterday's lesson in the assignments tab? So today's big picture is we are identifying and interpreting explicit and implicit information. Okay, so we are going to be looking at how we can build on the skills from last lesson and looking at how to make inferences and looking for similarities and differences across two texts. Paper 2, question 2 will always ask you to write about both sources. So this is an 8-mark question which asks you to look at both source A and source B. It will ask you to write a summary about the similarities or differences between information in the two sources. You should aim to comment on 3 to 4 ideas per source, focusing on content and suggested ideas. You do not need in-depth analysis for this question. You're just writing a summary. Okay, so what is an inference? A fact that you decide is true because of the information that you have. So examples of inferences and evidencing. So we've got a picture here. So the men are on a hike or camping trip, and we infer that because the men have big bags and hiking equipment. 2, the men are lost. We can infer that because the men are pointing in different directions and they're looking at a map. 3, the men do not know where on the map they are. We know this because the men are not looking at the map to help them. 4, it is a hot day. We can infer that because the men are in shorts and caps. So these are things that we are presuming are true because of the evidence that we have in front of us. So the word inference is a noun. Again, it's a fact that you decide is true because of the information that you have been given. So we can assume that I like English because I teach English. Okay, so you can infer that. So an example here are researchers are entrusted with drawing inferences from the data. Synonyms for this word are deduction, conclusion, reasoning, speculation, surmise, hypothesizing, making a presumption, an assumption, a supposition, an extrapolation, reading between the lines, and guesswork. They're all words that mean inference. So for this question, you have to show you understand the text that you've been given, source A and source B. Remember, one will be from the 19th century and one will be from the 20th or 21st. You need to be able to say why what you have read suggests a particular attitude or idea. You need to make an inference. So you need to say, I am inferring this because I read this. You should be asking yourself, what does this suggest to me about? What might I imply from this about? What does this make me realise? So sentence starters that you might use for this answer. This might suggest to me that. You can infer from this that. So let's have a look at some images and let's respond to them in the chat box. What inferences can you make about this image? Okay, so not what you're actually seeing, what's the inference? Okay, so follow your dreams, sign over it, cancelled. What about this one? Got a rather famous intellectual there drinking a bottle of Jameson whiskey with the phrase just Google it. Okay, so what inferences can we make about that? What about this one? This little boy crying because he hasn't got any likes on his post and he's got a phone in his hand. And this one, this rather romantic image of a couple, but they're both looking at their mobile phones. So what inferences can you make about this image? So this is what a question will look like. You need to refer to source A and source B for this question. Both sources describe people who are homeless. You're going to use details from both sources to write a summary of what you understand about the different attitudes of each writer's attitudes towards the homeless. So source A is the one we read last lesson, Down and Out in Paris and London by George Orwell, published in 1933, and it's the autobiographical extract on the theme of poverty. Okay, so What I want you to do is I want you to make some notes on this. If you go into the assignments tab, there is a file there where you can actually add your notes. You will need these inferences for your assessed piece. So it's based on what are your inferences about the writer's attitude to the homeless in this section. Okay, then we're going to have a look at source B. A nuisance beggar caught with £800 in his pocket for just 3 days scrounging, and police say he's not even homeless. This is a real article. It was published February 10th, 2014, and it's an article from the Daily Mail. Okay, so we're going to read that, and again, I want you to jot down your inferences about the attitude of the writer towards the homeless. A beggar that police believe isn't even homeless has boasted of raising £800 in just 3 days. The unidentified man was found to be carrying the substantial sum of money when officers arrested him in Nottingham city centre on an unrelated matter on February 4th, but they were forced to let him keep the cash when they could find no evidence to prove he had obtained it illegally. Nottingham police now fears the man could be one of 10 hardcore beggars operating in the city, none of whom are thought to be genuinely homeless or in need of help. Police officers originally arrested the unidentified man last week after he failed to turn up at a Lincolnshire court on an unrelated matter. Upon searching him, they discovered a haul of £800 in notes and coins in his pockets. Police said that although the man is well known in the city as a beggar, they were forced to give the money back to him as he had been arrested for something else and it could not be proven that he had broken any law in obtaining it. The man was later released without charge. A police spokeswoman told Mail Online, "As far as we know, the man isn't actually homeless. He's just sitting, shivering, and people feel sorry for him. If he doesn't actually ask for money, he hasn't broken the law." She added, "People would just feel sorry for him and say, 'Here's a tenner, mate.' That's what we believe is happening." Officers say the large sum of money suggests the man may be one of a group of all British hardcore beggars they fear are operating in the city. Chief Inspector Sean Ossel of Nottinghamshire Police said, "This shows they are basically conning people." He said it was 3 days' work. Finding that amount of money on someone like that doesn't surprise us anymore, which is perhaps the more worrying thing really. Mr. Ossel says he believes some of the group have been posing as big issue sellers in the city, adding, "They've been stopped before with similar amounts on them. It just shows that when some of these people ask for money, it is just a scam. People need to understand they are being conned." He went on to say, "These people have more than enough, so they don't need to go on begging." The Nottinghamshire policewoman said, "The message here is really not to give to people on the streets. There are plenty of options available to people through charities and hostels. If you give to people on the street, you really have no idea who that money is going to." So, again, I want you to go to the assignments tab to make some notes on these two texts. So using the inferences that you have just made, list the similarities and differences in the attitudes towards the homeless between source A and source B. Remember, you are going to be assessed on this, so it is really important that you do this. So what are the similarities in the text and what are the differences? So source A presents a positive view of homeless people, whereas source B presents a negative view of homeless people. Okay. So here are the answers if you haven't done that. Similarities are they're both about being homeless, both have strong views on homeless, both about real life experiences of homeless people, both are about trying to raise awareness, both about highlighting the homeless problem that is in the UK, both are trying to politicise the issue. The differences in source A, the writer's attitude to homeless people is positive, open-minded, sympathetic, defensive of the homeless, understanding that it's not Paddy's fault, considers Paddy as a friend, wants to help, written in 1933 and it's autobiographical. The differences for source B, it's a very negative perspective on homeless people, lots of opinions, very stereotypical, untrusted of homeless people, cautious of homeless people, weary, guilty and proven innocent attitude, saying that homeless people are con men, the scammers. It was written in 2014 and it's for a tabloid news article. So make sure you have got those on your notes.